Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit.
Hey, we're back with more Live from the Heartland. This is number 141 since the time of the pandemic began, and it is for the week of February 25th. It is our pre-election show. Those who have been tuned in know that we just talked with Chuy Garcia, who is optimistic about his opportunities and chances in this election, and certainly filled us in on a lot of detail about things that he believes, things he's done and would like to do. And now we bring in someone who Chuy called a mentor to him, and I would have to say it's someone I look to for leadership and certainly around elections and politics in a lot of ways, the one and only Don Rose. Good afternoon to you, Don.
How are you?
We're doing good. I'm in New York. I'm sitting in my kid's old house, or not old house, kind of modern in this apartment. There's a sculpture of mine in the corner. So our guests are in Chicago. And so is the engineer. I'm here in New York City, city of my birth. And I'm really glad that you would join us today. And I'll just tell the listeners right now that we twisted your arm and you're going to come on again next week and give us a little analysis of what happens. Our election is coming up on Tuesday, the 28th, not too many days away. And Don, why don't you fill us in on how it's going, what you see, what you're feeling, what you're reading, what the polls are telling you in your magical way of interpreting them.
Well, I've been trying to keep track of polling, which has been very kind of wild in the course of this. I think last time I was on here, I spoke of two polls that were known to be independent and known to be by qualified researchers that were very close to each other. And I haven't, subsequent to those, I'll reiterate what was in them. Subsequent to those two, I've seen one that purports to be an independent poll that has a substantially different takeout, and I have no way of judging it because we're not getting great reporting on this. Our papers, are trying, but it's very thin, and the fact that the Sun-Times and WBEZ did take a serious poll was useful, and probably the single most useful thing they've done. Now, those two polls in which I have some confidence showed the top three were Paul Vallis, Lori Lightfoot, and Chuy Garcia. In one, Vallis was ahead, Chuy was in second place, and Lori third place. In the other, Lori was ahead, Chuy was in second place, and Vallis was out. But I believe that Vallis is, on the basis of all the other information I can gather, including this third supposedly independent poll that I can't vouch for, that showed Vallis in first place. I believe Vallis is going to wind up in first place here. He has run a fantastically good media campaign, and I would say it's second only. The only runner-up to his quality of a campaign is the stuff Brandon has done. In all honesty, I think Chuy Garcia's media has been serviceable, but not brilliant, and almost coasting rather than giving strong reasons for people who are not for him yet to be for him. So, I mean, that's would lead me to say it's possible that he is dropping down because he's still under great attack from Lori.
Yeah.
And who was attacking Brandon also in her commercials, which suggests to me that her polls are showing that they're both serious threats to her coming into the primary, into the runoff. as we know, I think we've said this several times, on the 28th, the top two, presuming nobody gets 50%, which is almost impossible, the top two candidates will run off. So
How do you, Don, how do you think the people have been behaving themselves in these races? Just off of the ads that you were talking about, the mayor has been a little vitriolic, I think, attacking Chewy as a sellout and Brandon as a, I forget what she called him. But I also thought, what's that?
A police defunder.
I also told Chewy in our interview that I thought his ads had gotten better. That they were at the beginning. I mean, he got, he had that ad walking with the police, but then now he's talking more community, multi-ethnic, multiracial, rainbow-esque kind of stuff. And I'm just wondering how, in general, you think the campaign has gone as all of these people together in terms of the way they've dealt with each other.
Well, for the most part, we haven't seen Chewy attack anybody except Laurie on issues. And when you're running against an incumbent, you've got to give reasons. But it's been clean. Brandon, I think, overstepped a little bit trying to, not in a commercial, but in a couple of speeches, trying to say that Chewy was not a true progressive, which I think is a tactical as well, a tactical mistake, as well as simply not being true. So it's hard to say whether he has really moved up into contention with the top three. The best of my insight is that he's still behind the top three by a couple of points, but people are beginning to consolidate now. There's something like at least 18% undecided, and we're coming into the kind of weekend where people finally do make up their minds. So with that kind of an undecided vote, all I can say is that up to this point, it looks like it's going to be a runoff between Vallis and Chewy, but that can be tumbled and tumbled totally in the next 4 days.
What's your sense of what this weekend will be like, not only in Chewy's campaign, the mayor's, but all of them? A lot of activity, a lot of knocking on doors. Any sense of how many people have already voted, early voting? What does it look like?
Well, all the early votes are setting records, which suggests that we're going to wind up with a historic, it won't be a first, but we'll get over 40% turnout by the end of the thing. One can say a lot of people are just people who would ordinarily vote on election day are just taking time to do it beforehand. But the numbers there's a lot of interest in this, whether it's interest in specific candidates in some cases or anti-interest. A lot of people are coming out because they want to vote against Laurie because they're angry at her. Some people have developed a following, and certainly the teachers union is working overtime and spending overtime on Brandon's behalf. From my historic knowledge, Chewy should have a very, very good ground game over this weekend.
Yeah,
he's known for that. He has been able to elect numerous candidates against the machine and built, an entire progressive structure throughout the city council, ward committeemen, state reps, state senators. And this is due to more to the ground game than to his commercials, I would say, at this point. He's using a lot of Instagram, which I don't get, so I can't really judge most of those Instagram social media things. But it's it's really I have to say it's up in the air. I like to make firm prognostications, but when you're going into a race that is this close, all three candidates and perhaps four are within the margin of error, and there is, as I said, still a large undecided vote. And that suggests we could see something unusual. The only thing I'd say for sure is that Vallis is going to be one of the top two and probably in first place.
What are your tell us a little bit about Vallis, because I've really disliked him, particularly over the privatization and charter schools. He went to 3 different cities to run school districts. He's perennial runner. What's different this time with him in his long cashmere coat and his ads on TV with a multinational or multiracial ethnic group of people around him?
What's different here? He has a long history of failure, and the Tribune today finally came out writing about all the failed things that he's done everywhere he's gone. He claims to have makes false claims about his successes in New Orleans and Connecticut, other places on the East Coast, that is just plain bull. Here in Chicago, he was a pretty good financial guy before they made him head of the schools. He had no business being made head of the schools because he was not an educator. He did not come from that, and so he picked up on what was then known as school reform, education reform, which was centered on private charter schools, proliferating charter schools, and high stakes testing, which is the exact opposite of what we needed. It destroys and has continued to destroy public school systems all over. But he just grasped onto this because that was the easiest thing around, and Rich Daley didn't give a damn, and Rahm didn't give a damn. So that's his story, and his long resume, as long as you don't look and see what really happened in any of those systems. He was practically ridden out of town on a rail in Connecticut, and almost as that bad in New Orleans.
Yeah. Well,
So,
how do you think the media has been in general? You talked about the Tribune finally bringing up some stuff about Vallis, and we talked a little bit earlier about Chuy Garcia's ads. I'm thinking about a lot of young people, particularly my youngest 2 sons. They don't watch the news on TV. They don't read the Sun-Times or the Tribune. They do a lot of social media and I'm sure Instagram. What's your sense of the media on this race and how they've covered it, and has it been fair?
well, I think I said earlier, I don't really think it's been particularly good. They should have been looking into Vallis much earlier. The Tribune endorsed him already, but of course that's because he picked up basically the Republican, what Republican people and money there is, and he's allied with the FOP. These are
Fraternal
all,
Order of the Police.
yeah, yeah. No, I call them the Fascist Officers Patrol.
Well, some of them are.
And they should have looked into him much earlier and put out more information. Now, what we don't know is how the social media are playing it all. I just can't keep up with all the social media. I don't see it consistently enough. I don't get it from some people, and I can dig into it here and there. But not being a social media kid, I may be missing out on something that's going on. And as we know, newspaper reading is down. There's some TV, but the TV has done virtually no investigating here. You know, they give you little snatches of each forum. They don't really do any significant analysis. So overall, I have to give the total media, outside of a couple of articles that have come up, like today's very late takeout on Vallis, I have to give them a C-.
Okay, well, you think it'll be a runoff between two people? Chewy has a good shot, as does the mayor, and as does Vallis, and Brandon is within the margin of error. So there's really not much more we know, except those of you who have a particular candidate you favor. You've got a few more days left to really work hard at it to get the people out. Don, I'm going to switch now because you do a beautiful column every week, which I don't know how people can find it if they don't have your email and you don't have theirs. But
well, I do put it on Facebook every Monday morning.
Okay, I don't see it there. I see it on in my mailbox.
Well, you're on my list. You're on my list.
Oh, I get it. I read it. And you just most recently talked about a guy who I would have to say is not only mean and divisive, but a really just a really horrible human being. And I'm talking about the governor of Florida. And I think you had a piece this week about Ron DeSantis. You want to share some of that?
Yes, DeSantis is very clearly, if you look at all of his statements and edicts he's issued, and his control over the legislature there, which is, you know, totally in his hands, is clearly planning to be running for president as the leading culture warrior. And that means old-fashioned racism and old-fashioned homophobia. He is your leading guy, along with a number of well-known people like Governor Noem and Governor Abbott and so on, campaigning against critical race theory, CRT, which is a college level kind of course and program that's usually done at graduate school level in college, at law school. But they have managed to turn virtually any honest history, racial history, Black history, that's taught anywhere in the schools as CRT. And CRT these days, which now also incorporates the word woke, whatever that means now. At one time, woke meant you were alert to certain issues in labor and in race relations. But they are using the terms CRT and woke as euphemisms for the good old N-word that they can't use, but it gives them a perfect cover. And this is the way the Republicans are planning to win. They can't win on economics. They have no program to speak of. Any of the candidates, assumed candidates for the presidency, and DeSantis is the most sophisticated, because he has all the power in Florida. He's the most sophisticated, and he is identifying himself as culture warrior #1, and doing everything short of calling out the N-word or for gay people the F word. They're focusing in on the most difficult and troubled sexual identity group. They are into trans people. They know that they can't attack gays because there's just too many gay people around now who are known and families and so on. So they focus in on trans people, but in itself is another way of calling out what, as they called the law in Florida, don't say gay.
Yeah.
Saying don't say gay because they know they're going to say gay, and it's very bad. It's
another word that they oppose and they take it out is systematic. Is like systematic racism.
systemic,
yeah, systemic. I'm sorry. Well, we have a few minutes left. You want to try and give us a little understanding of why you think Florida has moved so far to the right? I mean, they have all kind of people down in Florida. There is definitely some strong right-wing contingencies in the Cuban, Venezuelan, immigrant community. There's probably a lot of plenty of other white conservatives, but it just seems like a little over the top that he would decide to just attack everything, that a lot of people worked up for, like women's rights, equality by races and stuff, being fair to people, educating people. He's just totally trying to turn it over. And to me, he appears to be such an obviously terrible person. I couldn't understand why even the right wing would vote for a guy like him.
Well, he was aligned with Trump and trying to become the new Trump, and he's more dangerous than Trump because he's smarter than Trump. I would say that the key element in turning Florida where it is the influx of Venezuelans as well as other Cubans, that have traditionally been right wing. And that's tipped the numbers more and more. And for some reason or another, the Jewish vote seems to have declined there. And I haven't been able to find out exactly what's there. But the losing the more and more of the Latino vote was the crux of it. And that comes from the assault on socialism. The immigrants there, the Venezuelans and still Cubans and others who are coming in there, are people who are trying to quote escape socialism wherever they are, and are changing the tenor of that state, which only almost 6 or 8 years ago voted twice for Obama. And
do you think that he will moderate as he tries to run for the presidency on the Gopper ticket? Do you think he will mitigate his extremism because he's going to be he has to get some other states? I mean, I don't think he'll win, but I don't know.
Well, he has a lot of compatriots who are who would like to be him. So it's hard to say whether they will fight each other off. Like I am more against them than you are. I'm a stronger culture warrior than you. Like Noam from Dakota, and Abbott, and Sarah Huckabee. People are all.
We got a lot of bad ones out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of support for that kind of movement, and they have to probably exhibit the most of it to win the primary, and then they've got the general to worry about.
Well, Don, I really appreciate you coming on. You've been heroic in coming on and being our guest 2 times in the last month or so, and you've agreed to come back on the day after the election, which is the 28th. Everybody be alert. We'll be back and we'll talk to you in a few days, brother. I hope we have some really great news.
I hope we have some good news to impart that one too. Good.
Okay.